For decades after the wreckage of World War II was cleared, Germany didn't just build an economy, it engineered a masterpiece. It was a philosophy of wealth that the world had never seen. A system where Made in Germany wasn't just a label, but a global gold standard for reliability. At its heart stood the Mittelstand, the powerful, often family-owned manufacturing companies that produced the cars, chemicals, and precision tools that powered the planet. This system worked because it balanced the needs of owners, workers, and society in a way that seemed almost magical. German workers earned high wages, enjoyed 5 weeks of vacation, and sat on the boards of the very companies that employed them. But today, that engine is seizing. The smoke rising from German factory chimneys is fading, and it wasn't an accident. It was the result of a decades-long systematic dismantling of the German way of life, a calculated campaign led by a rival philosophy from across the Atlantic. This is the story of how the American model of creative destruction targeted and eventually dismantled the greatest industrial success story of the 20th century. The architect of destruction, the American challenge. As the Cold War ended in the early 1990s, the United States emerged as the world's sole superpower, wielding a version of capitalism that was the polar opposite of the German Sozialmarktwirtschaft, social market economy. American capitalism was a high-stakes game of shareholder value, where labor was a cost to be slashed and quarterly profits were the only metric of success. Where Germany emphasized cooperation and long-term stability, America championed competition and the ruthless pursuit of efficiency. To the architects of the American system in Washington and Wall Street, the German model wasn't a success to be admired, it was a barrier to be broken. They saw the German system of co-determination, where unions had a say in corporate strategy, as an inefficient relic that slowed down the movement of capital. American policymakers believed their model was the end of history and wanted the whole world to adopt it. They viewed the German reliance on patient capital, where banks held shares in companies for decades, as a closed loop that prevented American investors from getting their piece of the pie. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, not fought with missiles, but with markets. The weapons of economic warfare. The assault began with the subtle ink of trade agreements and financial regulations. Through the creation of the World Trade Organization in the mid-90s, the U.S. established global rules that favored its own brand of mobile, borderless capitalism. These rules were designed to strip away the protections Germany used to nurture its national champions. Under the guise of free trade, Germany was forced to open its markets to aggressive American competition, while American companies used their massive scale and cheaper capital to undercut German domestic firms. Simultaneously, a wave of financial deregulation pushed by the U.S. Treasury and Wall Street swept across Europe. This deregulation severed the sacred decades-old bond between German industry and its banking partners. Historically, German banks weren't just lenders, they were partners who understood that building a world-class engineering firm took time. As the system was liberalized, German firms were forced to seek capital from international markets that didn't care about a town's employment rate or a 10-year innovation cycle. American private equity firms and hedge funds began circling German companies like predators, looking to buy undervalued assets, strip them of their pensions and R&D budgets, and flip them for a quick profit. The euro, a golden handcuff. Perhaps the most devastating blow to Germany's industrial sovereignty came wrapped in the promise of European unity. When Germany agreed to give up the Deutschmark and adopt the euro in 1999, it was hailed as a noble sacrifice for peace. However, the strong mark had been Germany's greatest shield. It forced German firms to innovate constantly to stay competitive, and it gave the Bundesbank total control over the nation's destiny. The euro created a hidden trap. By sharing a currency with weaker economies like Greece, Italy, and Spain, the euro remained weaker than a Deutschmark would have been. Initially, this looked like a gift for German exporters, as their goods became cheaper abroad. But it created a massive imbalance. German banks, flush with cash, began lending billions to Southern Europe at low interest rates, fueling a consumption bubble. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, the bubble burst and the euro trap was sprung. American-influenced institutions like the IMF demanded austerity, forcing Germany to bankroll bailouts while simultaneously cutting its own domestic investments to adhere to strict debt ceilings. Germany was no longer an independent industrial powerhouse. It was the involuntary guarantor of a broken currency. The dragon and the consultant. While America pressured from the West, it simultaneously paved the way for a threat from the East. For decades, U.S. policymakers championed China's entry into the global trade system, promising that economic integration would democratize the nation. In reality, China became a factory of the world that combined state-level organization with low wages, a combination the German worker could not compete with. German companies faced a lethal ultimatum: move production to China or die. Encouraged by American management consultants like McKinsey and BCG, German executives began to outsource the very manufacturing that was the soul of their brands. They were told that physical assets were a liability and intellectual property was the only thing that mattered. This advice was a Trojan horse. As production moved to Shanghai and Shenzhen, the German apprenticeship system, the dual education model that turned teenagers into master craftsmen, began to wither. Why train a master in Stuttgart when you can hire 1,000 low-wage workers in China? By following the American playbook of asset-light manufacturing, Germany began to hollow out its own foundation. The digital eclipse and the death of engineering. The digital revolution delivered the final blow to Germany's traditional strengths. Germany had dominated the 20th century through mechanical precision, but the 21st century belonged to the platform giants. Apple, Google, and Amazon built empires of code and data, not steel and chemicals. American policymakers promoted a vision of the future where the physical world was obsolete. Germany, optimized for the physical world, found itself a laggard. Its educational system, designed to produce brilliant mechanical engineers, was ill-equipped for a world where software was eating the world. American tech giants used their massive winner-take-all platforms to disrupt everything from German logistics to retail. Even the German car, the ultimate symbol of the nation's power, became a computer on wheels, with the most valuable parts, the software and the battery, being controlled by American or Chinese firms. The prestige of being an engineer in a factory was replaced by the allure of being a coder in a Silicon Valley startup, draining the talent pool that once made Germany invincible. The energy crisis, the final sabotage. The most recent and surgical strike against German industry occurred in the arena of energy. For half a century, Germany's competitive edge relied on cheap, reliable Russian natural gas. It was a pragmatic arrangement, the Ostpolitik, that powered the energy-intensive giants of the Ruhr Valley. It allowed German steel, glass, and chemical plants to keep prices low enough to dominate global exports. The 2022 Ukraine conflict provided the opportunity to sever this artery. Under intense diplomatic and economic pressure from the United States, Germany was forced to abandon its energy infrastructure almost overnight. The replacement was not cheaper green energy, but expensive liquefied natural gas, LNG, shipped across the Atlantic from American terminals. The result was a catastrophic energy price shock. For the first time in generations, it became cheaper for a German company to build a factory in the United States or China than in Germany. Chemical giant BASF, which had operated in Germany since 1865, announced a permanent downsizing of its European operations. The American victory was complete. They had secured a new market for their gas, while simultaneously crippling their largest industrial competitor. The collapse of the social contract. Today, the cumulative weight of these pressures has finally broken the back of the German model. The social partnership, the idea that labor and capital should work together for the common good, is in its death throes. Management, under pressure from international shareholders, now views workers as headcount to be reduced. The unions, once the most powerful in the world, have been forced into a defensive posture, trading away wages just to keep plants from closing. The statistics are a eulogy. Industrial production has been in a steady decline for years. Volkswagen, the crown jewel of German automotive power, is discussing domestic plant closures for the first time in its 80-year history. The high-quality jobs that sustained the German middle class are being replaced by low-wage service work and precarious gig economy roles. The social fabric is fraying. As economic security vanishes, political stability follows. For the first time since the 1930s, populist and extremist parties are gaining ground, as a desperate public looks for anyone who can promise a return to the stability of the past. The American victory and the global loss. From Washington's perspective, the Americanization of German economy is not a crime, but a natural evolution. They argue that the German model was too rigid, too slow, and too focused on things rather than ideas. But this overlooks the fact that the transition was not a choice made by the German people. It was a reality forced upon them by a global system designed in America's image. The big winners are the American financial and tech sectors. US private equity firms are now the vultures picking over the remains of German manufacturing. US tech companies control the data and the digital infrastructure of Europe. US energy companies have replaced Russia as the dominant provider. While the average American worker has seen little of this wealth, their own industries having been destroyed by the same globalist philosophy years earlier, the American corporate class has never been more powerful. What was lost? A vision of a better capitalism. The death of the German industrial model is more than just a shift in trade balances. It's the extinction of a proven alternative. Germany showed the world that you could have a society where the gap between the CEO and the worker was narrow. It showed that you could have a nation that was a global export leader while also providing its citizens with free healthcare, free education, and a dignified retirement. When this model died, we lost the proof that capitalism could be humane. We are left with a global system that prioritizes the quick flip over the long build. The skilled craftsmen of the old Germany have been replaced by the precariat, a class defined by permanent economic insecurity and a lack of purpose. The communities that were once anchored by a single proud factory are now becoming rust belts of their own, filled with the same despair that hit the American Midwest decades ago. Conclusion: the long shadow of a dead model. The story of how America killed the German industrial model is a cautionary tale about the intersection of power and ideology. It was not a single event, but 1,000 cuts, trade deals, currency traps, management consulting, and energy wars. The result is a world remade to serve the interests of short-term capital at the expense of long-term social stability. What remains is a global economic system that concentrates wealth relentlessly at the top, while offering those at the bottom the cold comfort that there is no alternative. The German model was the last great alternative. Its collapse ensures that the American way, with all its inequality and volatility, is now the only game in town. As we look at a future of deepening inequality and political rage, we must realize that the assassination of the German model didn't just kill an economy, it killed the hope that we could choose a different path.